Hello, everybody. It's Holger Mueller from Constellation here with the one and only Chris Paine, aka Ed Wombling, who's my eyes and ears on the ground in Las Vegas because I opted out not to show any preference of going to Orlando, to Las Vegas, and been traveling 5 weeks of the last 7. So sitting this one out from the fences. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Good morning, Holger. Very good, thank you.
Thank you for making it an early hour in Las Vegas, which is hard in general, but especially if you come all the way from Australia being jet lagged, I appreciate it.
Yes. It's a long journey to get here, but it has been worthwhile actually. It's been very good to actually put so many names, bodies to faces, let's say.
Yeah, it's good. It's great to be back in person, right? So
It is,
which
yes.
has been 3 years, right? I believe for SuccessFactors, 2019 was the last event. And
That's
I guess
correct.
not having events kind of like helps to have more announcement stuff, right? So, I mean, this was more than what I remember from 2019, 2018 together, I think, which SAP SuccessFactors announced yesterday, right? So
Look, there was quite a lot of announcements.
yeah,
Some of the stuff that's announced is already been made available. So
right,
that's, but it is the annual conference. So
right,
talking
right.
about everything that's coming together. And there's, as SAP tends to do, they've renamed a few things in the time. So but yeah, there's a lot of focus on actually taking what SuccessFactors is as a platform,
Right.
as the whole suite,
Yep.
and making that work together better. So that's probably one of my big things that I'm taking away. It's not about a particular enhancement in a certain area of functionality,
Right.
but more of, okay, the real value of getting SuccessFactors compared to getting some the best of breed tool in a particular area is that it is suite.
Right.
It interacts with each other, and you've got you put information in here, and you can use it over here.
That's
Yeah.
that's great point. Yeah.
So I think that's where they've really been focusing on. If you want to call it a release, I don't call it a release. It's SuccessFactors has 6 monthly releases. A lot of the stuff that they're talking about got released earlier this year.
Right.
There's some new stuff which is getting released, will be released later this year,
Right.
which is like the brand new stuff, like the dynamic teams, which is
Yep.
kind of interesting, which we can talk about in a moment.
Mhm.
But bringing it all together, it's one of the best things about this release, if you would call it that, is that most of this a lot of this functionality is actually being offered to customers at no additional cost.
Mhm.
So,
Well, they're paying maintenance, right? So
well, they're paying this subscription. They're getting
nothing
value
is
for
free for life. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's
they're
value for
getting
maintenance in there. Very good point. Important to
that
mention, right?
it is because so often you see these new things come through, and it's and that's an additional subscription, and you go, people go, oh, can I justify that? Can I not?
It's a great point, right? And it ignores the problem in the world of cloud where there's regular releases that there's not this pent up thing of everything. You have to kind of like summarize what's coming soon. So, but I was impressed. It was more than I actually expected. Taking like Sapphire from May as a ground where SAP overall didn't amount much, right? But this was significantly more, which is a good sign. And to your point, right, it's not just SuccessFactors as an HCM suite, it's SuccessFactors sitting in SAP. And with Christian Klein having the integration direction when coming on board over 2.5 years ago, I guess is now time is kind of like continues, is disrupted. It was all about integrating this. And I always find it funny that SuccessFactors is always looking for being the star student, right? So the experience thing, they even have the HCM when Qualtrics was a big thing. Now they're the first to adopt the platform. Now they come up with their sustainability methods with people sustainability. I was very worried when, not that it matters that you shouldn't burn out your people, don't misunderstand me, but I was very worried when the keynote was going this, and I had like a muscle memory deja vu of, remember when the whole keynote was purpose?
Yes.
So they go, please don't do this again. And luckily, especially when Amy Willis turns was on, it was all about the software, which ultimately my experience is all about. But let's talk about the big new things, right? Which probably is dynamic teams, right? What do you think of it?
Well, look, let's say I say so an amazing start.
Yeah.
So dynamic teams, the dynamic bit is about it's a temporary team.
Mhm.
It's a small team that you put together. It's not a project team. Which is a little bit more longer term. It's just a small grouping of, well, possibly you could use it for that. A small grouping of people coming together to do something, and
Right.
the ability to be able to see that and visualize that, but not necessarily change the organizational chart. So you're still in your existing position, but you've joined this team to do something. And the team, then there's some visibility that you're in this team. That team
Mhm.
can even have KPIs, you can
Yep.
associate, or OKR or whatever they call them
Yeah.
these days. But associate that with them, look at who's in them. You can, easily set like tasks for the team, which is
Mhm.
a bit interesting. It's so I said it's a great start, because I said to the team, I said, so why can't we have them for like just normal teams as well? I want to be able to have this functionality to be able to set KPIs for like my regular team. They said, Chris, hold on. We'll start with this dynamic teams, but it's a great idea, and I think it's got the space for improvement there as well.
Right.
So to bring this in, but it gives you, and it ties in nicely to opportunity marketplace, yeah, which is the space where you can advertise internally that you've got these not permanent, and this is the big thing about the dynamic teams and some of the assignments in the opportunity marketplace. They're not permanent. They're not changing
Right.
your role, your position, your pay.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff, that's just all staying the same. But it's actually reflecting how we tend to work these days,
Exactly.
in
Yeah.
businesses. It's like
Exactly.
I'm in this position, but I'm for a couple of weeks, I'm going to work with this team to deliver this
Right.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
But
no, absolutely right. It's much more reflecting how the real world works.
yeah,
And I think it's very important for HR systems to reflect the real world, because sometimes, even if it's only temporary, dynamic project, it becomes the cost center. It becomes the static, the real team, because hopefully people have been working on teams which build something lasting, something successful, which is meant to stay. So conceptually, I don't like labeling the teams different. So I call it there's an HR core renaissance, which goes away from the static hierarchy structure
mhm.
HR setup to this dynamic piece. And it's very, very important that those teams, and I know where SuccessFactors is there, you might have picked it up. I'm glad you're so much on the technical side, which I unfortunately don't have time to go to. But you must have external members to these teams, right? Which are not in the company, right? Think about the
So
whole gig
what you certainly can do is put contingent workers directly
right.
into the teams.
So
So
hopefully
yeah,
SuccessFactors and the whole field glass chasm is kind of like addressed in version 1 of dynamic teams, right?
well,
And
which
then
is
they shouldn't be
great.
first and second class citizens, right? The opportunity marketplace, of course, ties in good because of short-term opportunities, right? But I see that kind of like a little bit independent of that. But it's super relevant when you
Oh,
have to form a team to do something strategic, ad hoc, short-term, maybe just of interest to find that. And it's very good that they thought about tying performance management to it, because, well, that makes the team not so short term, right? Because if you want to manage
well,
performance of a
you
dynamic team,
probably need like at least a couple of weeks to
it
get
might
that.
be
Yes,
around for even a couple of months or not a couple of quarters. And then you get into
yeah.
this, shouldn't HR core
Should it
reflect?
be?
But it's a great start. Yeah.
I think it is a great start to be able to manage that, to be able to take some of this functionality and then potentially bring it into the rest of making it for the bigger teams,
Right.
my regular teams, and then doing some of this stuff around managing diversity of teams. So being able to say, okay, this is a team,
Mhm.
so I can now go, this is the I can then clearly say, well, the problem with my team and the reason it's not performing is because you know this analysis of the team, you really haven't got anyone who's got these skill sets to be able to help you manage
Right.
your team and balance that together. So that's kind of cool, and that kind of flows into what I was talking about earlier, which was a lot of the changes that are being announced, or the
Mhm.
solutions which are being put in, are about extending this platform. So all of the skills, the competencies, the mapping of all of
Yeah.
those, to take those down and then put them to the people, and then okay, people have got them. does your team have them?
Right.
What do you need as a team? You can learn, and then then it obviously makes sense to make the query: do I have the competencies that I want within my team, and how do I
Right.
get to the next one?
How do I get to them?
That person over there has got those competencies that I want. And
right.
so that's
perfect segue, right? It's 2022, and since 3 years there's no conference without the mention of skills, right? Skills is the new thing where all the HR vendors want to hang their hat on. Kudos to Workday trying this since 2013, where they did the acquisition of Personify to understand ontologies. They moved single vendor-handedly moved the whole industry to talk about skills. I'm still skeptical if, because I've done so many skills drives in my own personal life where nothing came out of them. I'm not sure if it's going to be different this time, only because there's better infrastructure. I think we need to find a way to electronically pick up skills intrinsically, right? Like we're doing this, there's social exhaust about this. So obviously Chris and Holger can do video calls, right? And maybe even listen to what we're talking about. Oh, they're talking about HR, right? So why would I have to enter somewhere? Yes, I can do a StreamYard video conference, right? So that will give a lot of skills which are relevant for the workday today, because they're using a modern technology. And it should be a feather in the cap in our skills or competency part. Yeah.
Well, it should totally be, and it's this. I think this is one of the things that dynamic teams and stuff is going to help with. So you be part of that team, and the role that you've done in that team should have implied a certain amount of skills. You know, the position you've done. Okay, those skills were inherent. Now, is that going to then just automatically suggest to you that you should rate yourself for these skills, or that perhaps you're interested in them? Yeah, right. I think there's a little bit of I know that you love to get AI working in these solutions, Holger, but there's the problem is that if I don't want necessarily the AI to suggest that just because I've been part of the team that I can do these things. It does need a little bit of human intervention to check and verify that that's actually happening. Also, the other thing which is really interesting that's coming out there is the ability for people to select their preferences.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that I have a skill here, it's that I want to get that skill. I want to learn that thing. And that is, I think, is really powerful, because that's changing that discussion around from, where we've gone from HR driving the conversation to potentially managers being involved in the conversation to now employees driving their own conversation about where they want to go. So
the whole career planning ambition aspect is super important. You're absolutely right, because you can only put so much engagement, purpose, and motivation from the outside as a manager in someone, right? There's a limit to everything. But if people really want something, that will go the longest way. They will commit the most resources, the most energy, the most dedication, and that's super important to consider. Absolutely.
Well, but it's what it is it's collecting data. To be quite honest, what we've always struggled on is, do we have enough data about our people to be able to do the right things?
Right.
And how do you get that data? Well, you get people to volunteer it. This is the thing, because
But it's been always like this. The skills drive on paper and form and spreadsheet was all about, we need to understand you to put you on the right place, right? And then, most people were disillusioned because they were never put in the right place. Or there were stupid questions like, do you know Excel? Right? As an example. And to what level do you know Excel? And who's going to put me somewhere because I know Excel, right? So,
exactly.
The hopeful thing is that we have easier ways to get the data, and there's more into the transactional side of finding the right skills, of teaching the right skills, and emerging what kind of content you have to do, which skills are important, which careers.
I think it's about making it worthwhile for the people to volunteer the data.
Right.
Yeah. And it's visible for
me. And then the good thing is, on the side of, like, it's easier for managers, for HR to see which skills we have, which skills do we need. So there's a chance to get there. I have not seen from any of the vendors a successful skills reference case study. We're always case study junkies. Nobody has come up with this, but I hope it will happen soon.
It's actually surprising to, it takes a lot to put together that skills matrix inside your organization. So, and then to actually drive the collection of that data, the validation of that data. I've seen organizations do it in small segments. Just take a small area of the pocket of their business, but to do it holistically for everyone in your organization, that's an enormous challenge.
Not even the poster boys, right? I'm surprised. Like there's another conference in parallel, which we don't have to mention here, right? It's always the SIs who are showing up and saying we're doing something, right? And
no, they're not.
Self-serving part. Of course they're doing it, and the SIs really should have skills, right? I put the right person, the right certification somewhere. They're doing a lot of that. Less automation. But then there should be one thing which, at least for me, is super exciting, and I know you're deep down the technical weeds as well, right? So on this line of the platform coming together, right? The low-code acquisition of AppGyver showed its beautiful face for us inside of SuccessFactors, right?
Well, okay, inside of WorkZone. So it was inside of WorkZone for SuccessFactors, which is a BTP, which is running on BTP, yeah?
Right.
So, but it was actually AppGyver inside of WorkZone, which was kind of cool.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to just deviate a little bit from the party line here that came through the keynote, just because, like,
this is why we're here.
This is why SAP love me so much. Yes, no. Yeah. Is that the example that was given in the keynote was silly. It was just so simple that yes, absolutely anyone could have put that application together. It was a drag and drop checklist.
Right.
Love it. Put a little flow on the end. Great. Okay. When you're actually going to be building these applications, you're going to want to have data from your SuccessFactors system in the application. Otherwise, why?
Yeah.
Why are you doing it? You want to actually push or pull data from SuccessFactors, yeah? So certainly pull. To do that, you need to understand the SuccessFactors data model. And that's not necessarily something that you get your everyday HR administrator to do. It's, it's what's the cardinality between these? Where's the date, joins on those things? How do you match them together? Those kind of questions, it then starts to go a tiny bit codey. Perhaps we bring in a technical person, a coder to do it. So yes,
but that's
the drag and drop
point, right? You're absolutely right, right? The enormous complexity. Systems like SAP, SuccessFactors, no ERP system, no HCM system with none even designed this year, were designed for no-code, low-code business user usage. But that's the abstraction of the tool, something in SAP's case AppGyver has to do to turn this complex schema into reasonable business language objects, where a mildly inclined technical person can do something which is not completely just the checklist, right? And that's the art, right? And if that happens, it's super, super powerful, right? We see that
I just don't see it happening, Holger. It's there is so whilst the drag and drop screen creation stuff, yeah, great, and the ability to flow and join things together from events. Actually, to be fair, that's programming. It's just being done without typing the text. So yes, it means I don't need to type code and for loops and stuff. But to understand the data model, where I'm going to put things, where I'm going to pull them, is a technical skill set. And even when we go to one of the other tools, which has seen some great success in recent years from SuccessFactors, which is the embedded SAC, so the embedded SAP Analytics Cloud, so the stories and people analytics, which is changing the way that you can put together dashboards inside of SuccessFactors. And making it look really nice. Even there, you still have to build your data model from the SuccessFactors data, and they've done a reasonable job of helping you figure out which areas you need to plug. But if you don't know, you don't know. You got to start from here, pull this data, then link to this one, then link to that one, so that you can get the data that you want to be able to report on.
Definitely not easy, right? And still too technical, I agree with you, but I think it's possible. I think I'm not giving up hope, because there's not enough developers to build all the code which you have to build.
This is true. Like it certainly lowers the barrier to entry, I think. Yeah,
and even potentially, if you get it right, at the beginning, like when low code came around, full code developers were fearing about their jobs and so on, and what might go wrong, right? And now you see the relationship has changed, and full code developer use some low code, no code tools because of the higher productivity, right? I mean, we should all have a pragmatic access to this, but I think there's nothing more powerful when, I call it like, you put the business user in charge of their automation destiny, right? For the first time, they're internalizing this. Oh, I'm telling Chris do this, and then Chris comes back and we go, I didn't mean it like this. I didn't think it through. Right? You know exactly that, right? So all of a sudden, that is like, shit, Holger, you have to think about what you really want to build, right? This is why Chris was always mad at you. Say, think this through, and now we need another week, and I was not happy with you being my full code developer, right? You know all this cycle. That's all of a sudden internalized, and that is what is so powerful. Many people will fail, right? They will build something that doesn't work, they give up. But the people who invest the blood, sweat, and tears, which ultimately coding is about, no matter if full code, low code, or no code, right? There's always pain involved in that. And then there's gratification of getting it done. I hope that lots of business users who are tech savvy enough will come through to help the enterprise to build the software that needs to be built. Yeah.
I think there is definitely space there for building, simple kind of solutions that are going to solve point in time problems, that can really work. There's the whole governance piece over low code, which worries me, but that's a different discussion.
Who cares about the code, Chris? What could go wrong when people have access to data schema?
Why would we worry about, we code directly in production? Because
it's in the cloud already. Everybody has it. So yeah. Okay, cool. So these were the three main topics I saw. What did I miss? Anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to highlight?
No, not really. I mean, I'd say, but where I'm getting the big vibe from is that it's about enabling. So what this release has done is to bring in this base level. I mean, probably I should actually also mention the data center migration. I don't know if you've heard about this. SuccessFactors replatforming off SAP data centers and onto hyperscaler data centers.
Well, off SuccessFactors data centers, right? So there's a little step before that.
Okay, right? True.
So talk how it is, right?
And then onto the hyperscalers. But they're talking about crazy things like 20% performance increases just from doing this. This is not changing the code underneath to take advantage of the data center itself, but just the fact that the Google clouds and so actually run faster. Yeah.
The point is, but it's not so. I mean, it's great for customers, right, to see that. But if you run on 2-3-year-old hardware, which the average SuccessFactors customers might be, or let's be fair, right? Data center hardware runs 2 years, 3 years, maybe 4 years, right? So the average is 2.5-3 years average life of that, because you don't want to move for no reason, and people know about the performance, about the same. You get that when you move to a new hardware generation. You get more. I'm kind of disappointed. You only got 20%. What happened to Moore's law, right? We know that Moore's law is at the end, right? But what have you done wrong that you only got 20-30%? Because the dirty secret is, right, you put you on a new platform, everything runs faster, and it makes sense for the cloud provider to buy the more expensive, faster platform because they can put more load on it. Right? So that's the dirty secret of the cloud and the reality of replatforming or moving to the next generation of hardware, which leads me to the point which is really important. When you're using software in the cloud, you want to know when is your next hardware refresh, because that hardware refresh will give you at least the boost. At least
what we'd hope, actually, by moving to the hyperscalers, they are continuously refreshing that hardware, which is
the software vendors running their clouds were supposed to do it too, but maybe they do it a little slower because they still think of it as CapEx, not as an OpEx mechanism. So it's thinking like, hey, I put you on faster hardware, your workload time reduces, I can put more on that hardware, which I don't tell you, but and I charge you more for the faster platform, maybe tiny bit. So that's the whole secret, which makes Amazon, Google, and
but what has been amazing is, like, apart from, there's a couple of customers who their SPF, their email records, the domain email verification was actually using IP addresses. So and the IP addresses of the data centers have changed. Obviously, they've gone into these things. There's been like no impact to customers. They just haven't noticed that they have been physically moved from one data center to another. It's just like bang, bang. I agree. That's exactly how it should be. But I still think it's quite an amazing feat that, Snap, the customers were just migrated, they stopped the, several million transactions here, and then bang, several million transactions here. The data has all moved across.
A lot of stuff had to happen in the background. A lot of heavy lifting.
It's credit to the guys who have been doing that from the SuccessFactors side. This is a pretty impressive milestone, and the whole of, fingers crossed that it all keeps on going well, because it's not all customers have been migrated yet, but many have. And by the end of this year, that should have everyone across onto the new data centers.
It's another important point to ask your SaaS vendor which cloud they're operating in, and if they're operating their own cloud, that's a warning sign from my perspective, because it's a needless allocation of capital expenditure, which could go into product. It's needless usage of talent and resources for something which can really be done better in the public cloud. From a safety perspective, right? We don't want to mention who had some unfortunate security issues there. From a cost of ownership perspective, from an overall user experience, employee experience perspective. So that's really important. You have to look under the surface. It's kind of like you want to also know how many cylinders does your car have, right? How much horsepower does your car have, right? I mean, is it enough? Is it not enough, right? So you have to get, as an HR person, you have to get a little more aware of what's under the hood. But hey, we're getting there. Perfect. Yep. So how's the mood on the ground? How are people energized, jazzed?
Oh, look, there's from
the whole spectrum?
No. Look, people are really excited. Every roadmap session has been oversubscribed. There's been people, unfortunately, so they're actually rerunning some of the roadmap sessions so everyone can get in. People are really excited to see what's happening, what's the new things that are coming through. Lots of people just, like, as I said, putting bodies to faces, because we've been doing like these chats, and I know exactly what your face looks like. How tall are you? I know.
This is not being transported here.
So that has been great. Understanding where people have gone, because people have moved around and stuff, and making those real connections back to who it is. Great catching up with the executive team. They seem to, now they've got their gang together. So with Aaron and Amy and Meg together, they worked together for so many years previously. They brought themselves together, and I think there's a real sense of energy in where they want to go, and and you can see that where Meg's been talking about getting this platform working to enable the next things. And I think that's been a lot of the focus on making sure that the platform EC, in particular Employee Central, which is the central driver, the central capture of all of the information that flows in through it, connects everything else together, making sure that that's working really, really well. People are happy with that.
As it should be, right? And then SuccessFactors leadership have gone through a lot, right? If you think about the 10 years, there have been 4, 5, 6 people at the helm. I don't even know. I don't want to count it, right? So I think it's a good team now. I wish them success and good luck, and hope they lead SuccessFactors to a lot of success with customers. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on, spending the time, sharing your views, Chris, from the ground.
That's okay.
And when are you going to hit the tin box again? When are you going to jump in the plane again? How long are you
this evening, unfortunately, Holger.
Evening. Short and heavy.
Because I've got the SAUG conference on Friday in Sydney.
In Sydney. Well, that's something you cannot miss, the SAP user group in application user in Sydney. If you're Australian, right?
Exactly, yeah. So I got.
Do they make you work on the weekend for the user group? The companies wouldn't send people there on a work day?
No, it's I arrive Friday morning. So the conference is Thursday, Friday. I'm arriving Friday morning, and then I'm presenting on Friday. So that's going to be a
Excellent. Well,
laugh.
it's the most busy week in HR, right? We know what conferences are going on. HR Tech is down the road. You probably don't even have a chance to go there. But yeah, busy week. Probably the most announcements this week, right? Then we have another mega week to look in October or November, whenever, when UKG and Ceridian have their events in parallel, and then we're probably done for the year. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Safe travel back home to Down Under. Say hi to Sydney for me. Really appreciate you coming on. Thank you, Chris.
Cheers. Thanks, Holger.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.